Yo, I'm Bob. Into Marvel, happen to be totally blind since birth, talking about X-Men the Animated Series, Season 2, Episode 9, or Episode 22 of the show overall. This one's A Rogue's Tale. It premiered on January 8th in 1994, so I'm only going to be talking about one episode in this video so we can do the remaining episodes in Season 2 in groups of two. There are only 13 episodes this season, but Rogue's episode here is one of my favorites. So when this reran during the summer of 1994, I had already seen, I believe, The Cure, in which we discovered that Rogue is just able to fly and she's strong. She doesn't know how she got these powers, of course. We find out why she doesn't know in this episode. But when this episode aired, it really blew my 10-year-old mind. I loved this thing. And I think right off the bat, getting to see Mr. Sinister pulling the strings, I love this scene. I already saw him in Till Death Do Us parts 1 and 2. So when he shows up here at the beginning of the episode, and when he tells Mystique, yo, Xavier's no longer with the X-Men, I'm giving you an opportunity to reclaim your daughter. One day I'm going to ask for repayment. I love that scene. I'd only seen this guy once before, but by this point, since the episodes were airing Saturday mornings, I knew Xavier had been gone for a while, and you just get Mr. Sinister here wreaking havoc. He's causing chaos. I kind of wish we could have gotten to see more of this as season 2 progressed. I mean, we see him in the Savage Land here and there. He's, having some fun with Xavier and Magneto, but we don't really see what he's up to as he's orchestrating events elsewhere. And I love how much of a schemer Mr. Sinister is. He just wants to cause as much trouble as he can for the X-Men, as he says, well, pretty much along the lines of what he says anyway. They're like lambs to the slaughter, pretty much. So we get to see the Brotherhood showing up in this episode. I don't know if we see them after this episode. But yeah, we get Pyro, Blob, and Avalanche. They're causing a diversion. The X-Men come to stop them. Rogue gets, I think, ice cream dumped all over it because Blob is feasting on ice cream. I'm not sure where he got it. There are no episode summaries for the later episodes, so I'm still going with the context clues that the dialogue provides in these episodes. And she starts having these visions, and when the episode first aired, I had no idea what was going on. I thought it was some sort of ghost that Rogue was seeing. I hadn't read the comics, so I didn't know who this woman was. And as the episode is progressing, it's a really disturbing episode, but I like how the writers did not pull any punches. It didn't disturb me as a kid. I figured, something was up inside Rogue's head. I wasn't sure what was going on until it was revealed to us later in the episode that there was another presence in Rogue's mind. And she's just wigging out for the first part of the episode. She is hitting certain X-Men members because you have this mysterious individual blaming Rogue for taking away her life. Rogue doesn't know what's going on. I remember being 10 and not knowing who the heck this woman was, what her beef was with Rogue. I thought it was Mystique at first. I wasn't sure what was going on. I knew Mystique was behind this particular plot. I still don't know how she got Rogue to see these visions of the individual inside her head. I guess she was probably just having them, and the flashes just got worse as the episode was progressing. But yeah, she eventually busts out of the mansion, and she's just kind of roaming around. She's not sure where to go. The voice in her head is directing her toward a hospital. And I like how Storm is trying to calm her down, to get her to explain what had happened. I think by this point, Jean finds out that there's another presence in Rogue's mind, but Rogue is no longer in the mansion. She's gone AWOL. Storm's trying to console her, but Rogue doesn't know what to do without Professor Xavier. And it's just another example of the X-Men being without a mentor. Rogue doesn't have that calming presence of Xavier with her, so she doesn't know what's going on at this point. Storm doesn't know how to help her, and of course Rogue is right there for the taking. Mystique thinks that she can get Rogue to come back to her, and I like how the origins of Rogue's super strength and flight are revealed. Rogue has to touch Mystique in order to remember what had happened, so we finally get to see Ms. Marvel here in the episode. And yes, it is Carol Danvers. This is the first time I heard that name, so whenever I think of Carol Danvers, I always think of this episode, because this was how I was introduced to Danvers here in this episode, as this disembodied presence trapped in Rogue's mind. The first time I got to see her as a hero, Rogue is stealing that plane. She somehow falls out of the plane. I'm guessing, I don't know, there's some kind of mishap. There are very few visual clues here in this fight scene. But yeah, I had no idea Rogue was a member of the Brotherhood for a little while before she joined the X-Men. So it's kind of cool. I remember as a kid seeing Rogue with Blob and Avalanche here, as well as Pyro. So she has a past history with them that she doesn't remember, I don't think, because Xavier must have blocked out those memories as well. And yeah, she's grabbing on to Miss Marvel, and she drains her until she's comatose. So that's how Rogue gets her flight and super strength here. And I was baffled by this. I was very taken aback by this scene from when I was a kid, but I loved it though. I thought it was a really awesome way to reveal Rogue's powers. I'm guessing this is probably the same way she gets her flight and her super strength in one incarnation of the comics or another. So you've got a fight scene with the other X-Men. They show up to the hospital where Rogue is with Mystique, and they're fighting Pyro and Avalanche. You've got Wolverine, who's thrown to the sidewalk, and he makes a little quip about how it needs salt, and he's trying to use his claws on Blob's stomach, but of course nothing moves the Blob. I like how Pyro is making, I'm guessing, animals with his pyro powers here. I think he probably conjures some kind of bird at one point in the episode, maybe a giant eagle. Gambit has to do battle with I'm guessing, a flaming lion, or like a lion made out of flames. And in the meantime, Rogue is shape-shifting because she's absorbed Mystique's powers. So you've got Miss Marvel, or Carol, trying to take over Rogue's body. She's, I'm guessing, more than halfway insane at this point, being inside Rogue's head. We find out that Xavier, of course, had blocked out those memories, because after Mystique had lied to Rogue and used her, Rogue does join the X-Men, and I like how Xavier attempted to do his best to help Rogue by quieting Miss Marvel as best he could, but Rogue, without the professor, she's starting to have flashes, and Miss Marvel is really trying to take over her body by this point in the episode. So you've got this really freaky instance of Rogue. She's turning into Miss Marvel a little bit at a time, and you have Carol in her head. Then you have Rogue starting to speak in the voice of Miss Marvel, which she actually does earlier in the episode. I think at one point Carol is in Rogue's body in the mansion, and she's like, "Where am I, and who are you people?" And but yeah, we get a big, crazy mind battle at the end of the episode. Storm can't catch Rogue, so Jean actually gets to do a bit of telepathic stuff in this episode. A little more telepathic, because she connects with Rogue's mind, and she helps Rogue to do battle with Miss Marvel. And it is very difficult for Rogue, because Rogue is a very compassionate person. She doesn't want to bottle up Carol again, but she has to, I think, put her in some sort of cage. It sounds like she's sealing her in some kind of concrete, or the mental equivalent of concrete, as the battle ends. And we don't get to hear Carol's name until the very end of the episode, when Rogue goes to visit her in the hospital. And she's got, that nurse or the orderly there asking her, "Oh, you know our Jane Doe?" And Rogue reveals the name. "Yeah, her name's Carol Danvers, and she and I were very close." And Rogue, I think, she visits her for a bit, but then you hear the monitor start to beep. So I think from the context clues there, Carol is waking up. And I really wish we could have gotten to see more of that as the show progressed. I wanted to see Carol show up again. We didn't get that, but of course, we've got Captain Marvel in the DC, not DC, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was watching a bit of Batman before I did this video. Forgive me, Marvel fans. The MCU. We got Carol in the MCU. She also shows up in Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I know very little of her outside of this episode, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and what she's been in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But this is always going to be the episode in which I remember her. Like, this was my introductory episode to Carol. It's raining outside, so forgive the lack of light. I guess I could try to open the window a little bit. You're probably not going to get to see much. But yeah, I give this episode a 10 out of 10. I like how Rogue's power origin was revealed here. We got to see how she was able to fly. We got to see her using her super strength. We got to see how all of that occurred. And we get to see Rogue and Jean being as compassionate as they could. We also got to see that really interesting flashback there with Professor Xavier. He did his best in order to help Rogue and Miss Marvel maintain what little harmony they could, because he just couldn't figure out a way to get Miss Marvel out of Rogue's mind. But I like that things did get back to normal. I doubt Carol has her powers because, I mean, they're in Rogue. I'm not sure how she reacquires those. Maybe we'll get to see her in X-Men 97. We don't see her again in X-Men the Animated Series. I don't even think we see Blob, Pyro, or Avalanche. If we do see them, they don't speak. I don't think they're in the remaining episodes. I know Mystique shows back up in more than one episode. She's in the final 4-parter, well, before the series was going into season 5. And we get to see her showing back up in a couple more episodes. But I think as far as Pyro, Avalanche, and Blob go, this might be the last time we see them in the show. Like I said, they may be in like little cameos or video footage on the news, but they don't have any speaking roles. So if they're not talking and if there are no notes pointing them out in certain episodes, I don't know that they're there. I love this episode though. And as far as episodes from season 2 go, it is one that I'm always going to be remembering because, it was the first time I got introduced to Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel. What an episode this was. And I like that the writers didn't dumb it down for the Saturday morning cartoon watching kid crowd in the 90s. They made it as heavy as they could, and I'm really glad that they did. I love episodes like this, and that is why I'm always going to come back to this one as one of my favorites from X-Men the Animated Series. And next time we're going to be talking about Beauty and the Beast and Mojo Vision. So be here for those 2 episode discussions. Until next time, true believers.